Hello and welcome to our Newborn Photography Safety series brought to you by Stand-In Baby. My name is Sandra Moffatt, and in an effort to make sure that we bring you all the information and facts relating to newborn safety, joining me throughout this series is well-respected neonatal nurse Anne-Marie Feary, who will be advising us on the essentials to safely working with newborns in a studio environment. In this tutorial, we're going to talk about safety issues with newborn photography. But before we start, I'd like to say that if you are unsure about anything you hear during this series, please seek advice from a medical practitioner near you and get the answers that you need. If you have been given information from other sources, make sure it's a reliable source because the health and well-being of our clients should always be put first. In this tutorial, we're going to do a walkthrough of the bum-up pose. We will cover what to look out for as well as what to avoid. So let's get started. So we're going to be now transitioning from the froggy pose into the bum up pose. And in an effort to try and not upset the baby or move it too much and to really fine tune our flow posing, the great thing about this beanbag, which is a Paloma shell beanbag, is that I have the ability to now untuck the sides, and because the beanbags are in two layers, I'm just going to really slightly twist the beanbag around, and then I can move very easily into the side bum up pose. So I'm going to do that now. I'm just going to put both my feet on the base of the beanbag to hold it for support, and then I'm just going to rotate this around. Like that, and then all I need to do is just attach the backdrop again.
Sandra, I really like the fact that you've spun the beanbag around, because it means that you haven't overstimulated the baby again. If you stimulate that baby, you're going to end up with a baby who's got really jerky movements. They're probably going to wake up. So great idea.
Now that we've spun the beanbag around, we're going to transition the baby from what could have been the hands under chin or a froggy pose up and into the bum up pose. To do that, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to bring the baby's head around to its shoulder, its hands up underneath its cheek, and its knee around to its elbow, so that we can get a nice twist through the tummy area. And the reason for the hand being underneath the head is just to prop that head up a little bit so that you don't lose any of it in the photo. But there is some circulation issues with this as well, isn't there?
So I think our concern again is that if you've got a really large head that weighs a lot, resting on the baby's hands or their arms, that you need to watch that you haven't compromised circulation. The baby's hands and their arms aren't getting blue or ruddy, red or pale. And just watching your baby's airway again, especially if you've got the bum quite up in the air, and depending on where you've got the baby's chin as well.
Yeah. So to watch for that, the tongue possibly
that you don't bring the baby's head too far back, and that babies have got a very large tongue and quite a small mouth, and that tongue takes up a huge amount of space in the baby's mouth, and if it just falls back a little bit, they don't have a lot of space in between the tongue to be able to get the airway through. And again, if the baby's chin is on the chest too much, they've got such a short neck that again it compromises their airway, and they can't breathe quite comfortably.
So is it okay for the baby to have its chin down sort of towards its shoulder? Is that okay?
It is, Sandra, but I think photographers need to be quite mindful. They're working with babies who are only a few days old. It is possible that some of these babies have got birth trauma. So again, you need to have the conversation with the parents that is the baby, did the baby's say collarbone is okay, and again be very careful that you're not forcing babies into any position that feels unnatural. If you've got to force the baby, you need to stop.
And I guess you could pick up on that if they're moving heaps or trying to sort of move out of position, that maybe they're not 100% comfortable with the position that you're doing.
Babies are very strong in their legs, and they'll they will.
Awesome. Okay, so what I'm going to do to transition from the current pose that the baby's in is, first of all, I'm going to bring the head around towards the shoulder, and gently I'm just sort of more grabbing with my hands towards the temples for full support, and a flat hand coming in under the cheek, making sure that I don't scratch bub at all.
So that's a great point, Sandra, because what happens is you might notice that Sandra and I have got plain wedding bands on. It's highly recommended when you're working with newborns that you take any jewellery off. We're not wearing any bracelets, we're not wearing any necklaces, and we're certainly not wearing any rings with stones. Apart from the fact that, we can be, that there's a potential there to injure the baby, scratch them, break their skin and stuff. So we have to be very careful of that.
Absolutely. So all I've done is I've just put the hand sort of underneath the cheek there. I'm going to bring the baby's bottom and both legs around towards to reach towards the elbow. And I'm going to lift up one of the legs and bring it through underneath the knee. Now, when I was showing you this pose yesterday, you were saying it is really good to leave this arm out for support to stop the baby from falling back, and actually you were saying that it is more comfortable as well.
Even if you do it yourself, if you're lying on your side and you try and wrap this arm around, it feels very unnatural and really uncomfortable to be lying on your arm. So it's quite comfortable to bring that arm around, and it will also prevent the baby from rolling back.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I transitioned from that original pose, the head is already quite up in an elevated position. So all I need to do is really put some more padding up underneath the legs to bring the bottom up a little bit.
And again, Sandra, this is a conversation that you need to have with parents. You need to make sure that there's no hip dysplasia. Under no circumstances, if the baby has got a harness on, do you take it out of the harness. And again, just be mindful that the hips and the knees need to have this facility to be able to bend, but the hips need also to be able to, come out from the midline, from the legs from the hips. So, just make sure that baby looks to be in a fairly natural position. And again, if the baby doesn't want to do it, don't force.
Absolutely. I guess you don't need to bring the foot through as well. So if the baby's resisting, you could definitely eliminate that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add another towel underneath the baby's bottom for support and to bring up that curve that we're trying to create there for the bum up pose. Now to do this, I'm actually going to, with one hand, I'm going to put my hand under here to support the baby while I bring the support towels under, so that I'm not upsetting it or causing any discomfort. Okay, so another thing that I really did want to add about this pose, even though we have this sort of beautiful curve coming through here for the bum up pose, the baby's back, this is pretty much as far as it goes. I have seen some photos where photographers have created a bigger dip in the baby's back, but I'd like to add that that's actually done in post-production through Photoshop. It's not something naturally that babies can do. So if you do really want to emphasize the dip in the back, and that is your style and the way that you create your art, it is definitely something that you need to do in post-production, and don't keep pushing the baby to create a bigger curve than can clearly naturally happen with a newborn. When you're photographing the bum up pose, you're going to want to take it slightly towards the front of the baby, because you've got to remember that whatever is closest to the camera is going to be the biggest. So we don't really want to make the baby's bottom the biggest, we want to make the head and the features of the face. So we're going to actually take it from this angle. You can get some really beautiful detailed shots now as well. That's pretty much your basic bum up pose. From here, I could transition into a side pose from this one. If you'd like to see that, you can follow our tutorials and subscribe to us on YouTube. Thank you.